We offer probably the largest entertainment catalog in the world. When I started at JioHotstar, all the way back in 2017, we didn't start off with a mission to say, hey, we need to set world record. In 2018, the first time we ran IPL on our platform, we set the world record back then, the first 10 million. We started to shoot IPL in 4K. It's surprising a lot of international leagues are still upscaling to 4K. Shooting in 4K with 4K cameras, that quality is something completely different from just upscaling 4K. We did this commemorative plaque for our team in Hotstar. I think just milestones, going. Yeah, sure.
10 million, 25 million, 25 million, 50 million.
So, breaking the concurrency record to breaking the single country subscription record. The size of the audience we have in India and that is digitally capable will always far outstrip most countries. We have about 800 odd million smartphone devices in this country. That's your target demographic. Sports is so foundational in North America. It's been very television oriented. I feel like the digital jump hasn't particularly happened.
You broke the world record with 61 million concurrent viewers during the ICC Champions Trophy final.
In 2 years' time, I may have 100 million concurrent customers.
Akash Saxena has built the systems behind how hundreds of millions of people watch and connect in real time. He led the engineering behind Disney Plus Hotstar, JioCinema, and now JioHotstar. Platforms that didn't just scale, they broke records.
Even now, after 8+ years of doing this, I still don't know what the ceiling of our digital audience is.
With all you've done and all you'll do, what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
To be known as someone who
So AI is changing how platforms serve users today. What excites you most about its potential in live sports streaming?
it's live sports is now here in the moment.
Yeah.
I think for us to use AI there, everything takes time, even from a generative perspective. So it's challenging. I haven't really been able to say this is a particular use case where I can deploy AI. I think we've tried in the past to say, we've been cutting highlights for the longest time now using just classical machine learning. Right. And now with AI, it gives us that much more capability to start to maybe pull in some related clips and so on. One place we've really been able to use AI is to help our commentators with a lot of stats trivia. So again, go back to saying that you have an empowered and amazingly like a pair that you can just shadow on, right? And imagine as a commentator that you're able to get talking points, that you have some ideas, you have some threads, and the AI is able to sort of spit that back to you, which we have tons of stats, tons of content library that we sit on. So it's good to be able to sort of start to do that. I think you can end up with more thoughtful outcomes with the human in the middle. Those are some of the production use cases that we're sort of doodling over to say that, how can we augment our production teams to create even more richer outcomes versus doing maybe, let's say, more online, AI interventions.
And do you think AI will allow you to serve a truly personalized experience going forward? Like, how soon do you think that future is?
It's a while away. You tell me, I'm going to stream, we just hit 61 odd million. That is, it's terrifying to personalize that to, every single customer. That in itself is pretty crazy. We do a lot of personalization from an ads perspective, obviously from a targeting capability perspective. I think getting to live sports is a unique, I have more just entertainment VOD applications that we are doodling over. Live is unique because altering live is not a thing, right? Hardik and Akash may largely, again, if I go back to the localization discussion we were having earlier, You could say that, we both have a preference on which player we'd like to see focused on.
Yeah.
Though we are there to watch the event. So, your player may not be contributing to the action. So it's to me personally, creatively, the jury is out a little bit on saying what does that personalization look like.
Right.
Can technology do it? Yes, absolutely. But does it make sense to do that? I don't know. Right. We are doing, we had rolled out this capability called Max View, which I'm really proud of. Which sort of verticalizes the video.
Yeah.
Right. And anchoring subject to a subject and then making sure the camera angles are appropriate vertically.
Yeah.
That's a problem that we've tried to crack with ML and AI in tow. Of course, little more ways to go there, but that's one place where we're starting to, how do we use that on live? And camera angles is another capability that our customers have when they watch live events on our platform. Are we able to introduce more experiential cameras using the technology? That's again another idea that we are sort of thinking about. But those are some of the spaces where we think we can apply this technology from a live perspective.
See, what do we have here, Akash?
Bunch of memorabilia from Hotstar days. Yeah, got my Lego, my Mercedes car, big Hamilton fan. This is a series of books. So when I moved on from Hotstar, the Cricket 4 team gave me this set of books, and all of them are fabulous. I think I've got the Rahul Dravid story, which is like incredible. I mean, like if you think about someone who's like straight through his process, like each of them, I think to me are big. I'm a big big Cricket 4 fan, so it was amazing to get this from Sambit, Sambit, right? So, and it was fabulous too.
Who wrote this book, by the way?
This is curated. So, this is again, I think Sambit has probably put this together.
Wow.
And then, the most iconic story ever, right? The story of our World Cup, and I think
that was such a mad night. I remember just going down on Mumbai streets.
Yes.
No one slept that night.
Nobody slept
that night. It was, I think, 2 a.m. or something, and like.
Yeah. So it's a special set of books, I think, in terms of course, I've read a lot of these columns over the years, so to have them in like collected form is sweet.
So Akash, one of my favorite all-time players is Michael Jordan, and when he was number one, he used to say that even when you're number one, you have to play like you're number two because you are your biggest competition, and that really stuck with me, and that's something that resembles with me when I look at your journey as well. You've repeatedly broken your own world records. You made them and you've broken them. How do you stay motivated when your biggest competitor is yourself?
I love that you picked Michael Jordan. I think The Last Dance encapsulates so much of how Michael Jordan works and operates, and I think what really stands out is his hunger. He's just restless and I wouldn't say he's dissatisfied, but he's just insanely restless and such a competitor. I remember watching that show, and the one thing that always stoked him was someone needling him or some competition, right? But thinking about that sort of parallel and the journey that I have had, I would say that we sort of accidentally bumped into this whole world record creating spree. When I started at Hotstar, all the way back in 2017, we didn't start off with a mission to say, hey, we need to set world records. Really, the journey has been about enabling, entertainment access digitally for India. And, we are a big country, lots of audiences. So every time we break the record, I always walk away feeling very humbled that, wow, okay, we were able to reach that many people. And still, even after all that, there is so much of a ways to go. So that really keeps me motivated. I think at the end of the day, it's not, again, going back to Michael Jordan, I think, each tournament or each event that we do, and we do sports and we do entertainment, so much on the platform. All of it really, stems from the whole mission that, we sort of got on almost now 8+ years back to say that, what would you do if you had a big megaphone right? In the media and entertainment business, we all have megaphones of varying sizes, right? And especially in a country like India that has such a varied demographic, and just customers, at various economic stratas, various preferences. It's deliciously complex. It isn't simple to crack this sort of market, and I think the mission to be able to tell our stories that our storytellers are coming up with to a very large audience, that's really been the motivation. I'd say the records have been incidental. So we're still what keeps me going is largely that we still haven't completed that mission. So that's really the push that I always have.
I think there are two types of leaders who make it. People who once they've made it, they would say that I always knew I would get here. And then the other person is like, I never knew I would get here. I just put in the work. And I definitely think you are the latter.
Yes.
And it's got more to do with the obsession about the details of doing the job right rather than expecting the result that I think leads you here and why you're not satisfied. Welcome to Legacy Engine, where the world's most influential minds in AI, media, and sports open up, not behind a mic, but in their own environments, where the real impact happens. I'm your host, Hardik Jagda, and in every episode, we go beyond the headlines, into the decisions, the risks, and the breakthroughs that shape legacies. Because the future doesn't just happen, it's built with intention. And today, we're sitting with someone who's been building it long before the rest of the world caught up. Akash Saxena has built the systems behind how hundreds of millions of people watch and connect in real time. He spent over a decade in Silicon Valley. He helped scale OpenTable all the way through IPO and acquisition. Then he returned to India and eventually built something even bigger. He led the engineering behind Disney Plus Hotstar, JioCinema, and now JioHotstar, platforms that didn't just scale, they broke records. In 2025, they hit 61 million concurrent live viewers during the ICC Champions Trophy final, the largest audience in the history of live sports. And this isn't his first. He's broken that record 3 times. Akash doesn't just lead teams, he builds high-performance cultures. Everything's on the line and millions are watching. His tech doesn't blink. And he turns raw viewership into real monetization at a scale most companies still only dream of. He's a startup soul who thinks at Super Bowl scale. And today, we sit down to talk pressure, performance, and what it really takes to build the future of sports, AI, and streaming. Welcome, Akash. Welcome to Legacy Engine.
Thank you.
So Akash, players like Netflix just started with live sports streaming recently, and even they struggled a lot with the recent Mike Tyson fight, and they struggled to keep the live stream experience going at optimal level. You solved that problem almost 3 or 4 years ago. What did you figure out that the rest of the industry didn't?
I think we just had to solve the problem earlier than everybody else had to solve it. The size of the audience we have in India that is digitally capable will always far outstrip most countries. Perhaps China may be an exception from that perspective. So we've always in India had to find our own sauce, if you will, to solve these things. And look, I think over the years, credit to it's amazing to see a lot of broadcasters catching up. I think if I look back on our time, we've been able to build a lot of workflows and evolve a lot of tech, whether it comes to CDN, it comes to video encoding, just player technology, figuring out the right buffering strategies and the right encoding ladders and things like that. We've had to come up with it, pretty much from scratch, fail a lot of times before now we can look back at all the time spent and said that it's been such a great journey. Right, and look for any new players starting. It's interesting you brought up the Netflix streaming example. It's Netflix by itself is a platform that's not built for live streaming, right? When your DNA is like that, and look, this is not a criticism of Netflix or any other provider. Huge respect. We learn a lot from Netflix and very inspired by their product capabilities. But the point being that like if I look back at JioHotstar or Hotstar, JioCinema, now JioHotstar, our DNA has always been one of a sprinter and a marathoner at the same time. So we've had to stream everything from regular entertainment to live sports to news we offer probably the largest entertainment catalog in the world, I want to say, right? Like, what platform do you find HBO, Showtime, Peacock, all in one go, right? I am not aware there's any other platform in the world that carries the content catalog that we have. So we've had to find solves for all of this, right? And you contrast it to, let's say, Netflix, just from an example perspective. Their DNA has always been VOD entertainment. When you do that, and then furthermore, you take it from a product that's evolved in North America, better devices, more modern cellular infrastructure, more wired devices, and then you say, well, we want to do it across the globe. That's going to be a learning curve, right? And credit to them. I think they while they had hiccups, and they sort of overcame them, and have continued to evolve as any platform will. But yeah, it's a journey. I think you got to do it and find where your platform breaks till you get there. I mean, we've had to solve it because we had no choice. And our and we I'll say also, this is something in hindsight that I can say that we didn't start off thinking we'd break records. We didn't start off knowing what the ceiling of our digital audience is. I'd say even now, after 8+ years of doing this, I still don't know what the ceiling of our digital audience is. And that's very humbling. And it's very scary at the same time. Right? Whether, just as a technologist, it's very exciting. But from a business perspective, being able to, we have these laws of, what's important. The most important thing is that the video's got to play. The second important thing is that the monetization's got to work. And the third important thing is that the subscription's got to work. So, it's make sure your product works and then talk about how to monetize it. But the monetization quickly becomes an incredibly hard problem to solve. Targeting single customers at that scale so that our advertisers can reap benefits. And of course, we are able to monetize what are incredibly expensive sports rights. That by itself has been a more emergent problem. I think, while we've been comfortable with dealing with increasing sports scale, just the streaming aspects of it, we continue to evolve and continue to get better at it. But I'd say the last couple of years has been a lot about monetization at scale. I think those have been more challenging problems to think about. Yeah, just stuff again. Family, we did this commemorative plaque for our team in Hotstar. I think just milestones,
Can I see it?
Yeah, sure.
10 million, 25 million, 25 million, 50 million.
So, breaking the concurrency record to breaking the single country subscription record.
Got so much nostalgia.
Lots of nostalgia. This is the champagne that we broke when we hit 10 million, and this is the 60 million.
Most recently, you broke the world record with 61 million concurrent viewers during the ICC Champions Trophy final, and that's a record that no other streamer has broken before. So how do you think about, and those are 61 million paying subscribers?
Yes,
that's massive scale. Like, that's the number that most people only dream of, right? Any company that is starting, if they have 61 million users paying for that kind of subscription, I mean, you've made it pretty much.
Right.
And you're still not satisfied. You're talking about, like, I still don't think we've hit a ceiling, and I still think we can keep going. What are some of the principles that you adapted early when it comes to monetization, when it comes to your partner ecosystem? How did that change over time? And what are some of those lessons you can share there?
Yeah, Hardik, I think you got to zoom out and again go back to what your platform offers, right? One is simply what you're asking me about is, let's say, I'm going to call it flash monetization, right? It's a flash mob that shows up, and you have a lot of customers who want to partake in the moment, the final touchdown, or finding milestone that the player is going to cross, or so on, right? You say, and again, this may not translate very well to North America, but a lot of peak sports watching comes from customers sometimes who cricket as a game, it depends what format you're watching, but it has its ebbs and flows like any other live sport. And the casual sports fan sometimes may only want to come in when there is a peak, and this is what drives a flash. And then when the flash shows up, we call these things, rightfully I've always called these tsunamis, right? So when the tsunami comes, then at that point, how you are able to create enough technology shock absorption, whether it is through your technology, whether it's through product design, whether it's architecting partners to be able to take the beating. That's where we spend a lot of our time on. Now, it's amazing to be able to sort of do this and say, yes, we were able to get 61 odd million people to be entitled and subscribed and be able to watch the event seamlessly. We're able to take the money, we're able to watch the video, we're able to make sure that people have the right quality levels, or whatever you paid for, you got. Sustaining it is yet another problem, to say that how do you fundamentally discriminate between, let's say, what's a T-word experience, if you were to think of just that, right? Yeah. Short-term entitlements versus saying customers to keep coming back more frequently on the platform. That sort of life cycle management again has its own scale challenges and interventions that we have to think of from multiple angles. So this is again sort of going back to the thought that if the platform was an athlete, the athlete needs to run a sprint as well as a marathon, right? And I'm no athlete, but when you speak to premier athletes, you hear the best in the world talk about how they prepare. They are very different things, right? I remember watching this documentary about sprinters, short distance, 100 meters, 200 meter sprinters. For them, sometimes the focus is so much that they are like, no, we only want to focus on that 100-meter sprint. They won't even do the 200 meters because that also requires a different prep.
Yeah.
I'm only bringing this out to illustrate the point that we've had to, over the years, think, be almost split brain to say that what does our 10,000 meter strategy look like and what does our 100 meter strategy look like, and it's the same person that's got to do it, because the technology choices you make, the partner choices you make, your spends, your focus, all of it pretty much, imagine, is schizophrenic really, because you're like, well, I'm a marathoner today, I'm a sprinter today, like what am I?
How do you balance that in your team?
It's tough.
Like it's not, because it's, even with my teams, it's not easy to have two high priority items to work on, right? Like, and especially if they are polar opposites.
Yeah, I like to think, it's a cliched representation, but a flywheel is what we like to think about. And I think so many blogs that I've written, in some of the blogs, the one metaphor that works for me always is, sending a rocket out into space, right? All of us have seen rockets get launched now by this time, right? And if you see, what does a rocket look like while it's on Earth, and what ends up eventually in space. Every part of the rocket, right, whether it's booster rockets and the launch rockets and so on, they all have a role to play in a particular stage.
Yeah.
After they've done their job, they just fall away. The goal is to put it into space, into orbit. So we kind of work backwards from that sort of a philosophy to say that every part of our product plays a role, right? And I spoke about how we prioritize for us, for the platform, what is important, and then based on that rule engine, we make decisions, right? So on most days we don't need to make these calls, and understandably, we have almost, I think, 280 days of live sports now at this point as JioHotstar, and first of all, trying to make it a non-event, because it's not scalable to have this level of operational rigor, and run it only with humans. That becomes a big thing. And then if you're able to reduce the drama on that, then you're able to start to focus on building a lot of the other marathon aspects of your product. And the other thing always is that's been foundational for us, is to say that we know that we have to run a marathon and a sprint. And what is needed for a sprint, to identify that and to say that as we architect and adapt our platform, we've been mindful of making decisions that are, I like to call it, just a future debt. But, you take future debts, right? And you want to move forward in that direction, to say that I may not have all the pieces today, but I know eventually the scaffolding will become a building.
What's your incident response management like, or your crisis management when you are in the middle of a live game?
Good question. All my incident management is built around how Formula One works. For me, uh, I really revel in finding patterns in things that we all do. It's a bit geeky and nerdy perhaps, but it's fun. I think whether it's shooting a film or whether it's delivering high scale live video or what have you. I think we find it's good to see how people work because you find a lot of commonalities, and it's wonderful to see craft. Formula One is one such inspiration where there is victories in the margins, and it's very small margins. So when you're operating at already the bar is so high, you're operating at such a high excellence level, uh, and then on top of that you're saying that it's the micro moments that make all the difference, right? But to get to the micro moments, this is again I've spent a couple of years in the US, and uh, big football fan, and one thing that always struck with me, I remember when I started to watch football, it was coming from India, it was this it was a very American thing. So there's like hundreds of people on the field, and they're playing a game, and you're like, what the hell is going on? But the beauty is in you say, well, you got offensive teams, you've got defensive teams, you've got secondaries. It's literally if you step back and when you understand the mayhem and the beauty of it, right? And you pick any sport really, it is systemic to any successful coach. Everyone has role clarity. Everybody knows what they're doing in an ideal state, and it's drills, right? You talk to most coaches and most successful coaches, it's very instructional to hear them talk about how when they think about it, they are the conductor and they're orchestrating all of this action on the field, and they always know what's going to happen. So it's almost like a dance. Dancing is also no different, right? You've got to learn, whether it's programming or dancing, you've got to learn the basics. The basics become obvious. Once you master that, then you can make your own steps. And then you can create the variations, you can go beyond that, and I think there's a lot of beauty in that. Coming back to the now, how does all of this tie into
Crisis
operations
management,
and crisis management is literally again, we spend a lot of time obsessing about just the drills. What happens when things break?
Right.
Who is responsible?
So you practice to fail, essentially.
We practice to fail, obsessively. Right. The happy path is never happy. So the thing with all my teams has always been, we've literally sat down. I can go back to the first time we ever ran IPL, and we said, what is everything that can break? Right. And I remember I sat down and I said, okay, this was like my worst anxieties, right? And it was this like completely outlandish stuff, and it comes from also a leadership pattern where sometimes you have to embrace ridiculous outcomes, and you work with people and you're going to say, what, hey, we're going to make $1 billion. Like, get the hell out of here. I mean, we are barely making $1 million. What are you talking about $1 billion? And it's a technique, it's a pattern. It makes you break out of your classical thinking or your constrained thinking, and really forces you to think outside, right? We recently went past our record. We set a world record at 61 odd million during the recently concluded Champions Trophy. We were prepared to break 50 million, or we were ready for a 50 million surge almost 6 years back. So I remember when we initially started to work on it, my team said, you're crazy. Why are you making us do this? Because there isn't enough CDN capacity, there isn't enough compute capacity, there is no proven data point that you will have so many people. And I said, well, tough. You work for me. We got to solve this.
What is it like? What's the situation like in a war room where you're preparing someone to be able to handle a 50 million capacity, where you are at probably 1/10 of it at that point, and everyone is expecting that you won't go beyond, say, 5 million or 10 million at that point? And how do you keep the motivations high? Because if you don't hit that number that you are setting, and they are like, why did you plan for this like years ago?
Well, I've got
Again,
a
it's in hindsight question because
yeah,
right
yeah,
now it makes so much sense. But how do you
true.
keep the team motivated when they're spending nights in the office during a war room?
Good one. Again, I've been fortunate to have people who believed in the mission,
Yeah.
and sometimes I do have it gets sometimes it gets to points where I say, well, you know, uh, trust me on this one. This is going to happen. We're going to do this, right? And I've been fortunate to have outcomes where even getting to, let's say, a 10 million and a 18 million, 25 million, even if I look at the steps, all of them have had their insanities even getting there, right? And it is, the war room uh, is not one for chaos. The war room is where the playbook is set, going back to how your coaches would operate effectively at every step. The team knows what can happen, right? So by then, think of it this way: it's a your adrenaline is already so high because you're already ready for 50 million. So 20 million is a walk in the park, yeah. It's a bit like that. So I think it sort of mentally prepares you for a really bad outcome, perhaps, or a really crazy outcome.
See, I think that's a very key philosophical difference between you and a lot of the leaders that I know of, even in major sports streaming platforms. And when something goes wrong, they usually blame it that we were not prepared for this, that we were not prepared for this kind of surge, right? But you are saying that we already prepared for 10x of it. So I think that's what sets you apart from other leaders today.
I wish I could claim sole credit for it. I won't. I've been fortunate to have audacious leadership around me that said, hey, well, we're only preparing for. I'll go back and even look at my journey at in the media industry, and right from the first time, I don't come from a media background. I'm a classical engineer's engineer. So when I shifted to media, it was a brand new thing, and I remember again approaching the problem classically, saying, okay, last time we got whatever, back in 2017, I think the most we had ever hit was about 3.5 million. And we were coming up on a very large game, and I remember saying, well, we'll be ready for 7. And one of my leaders said, well, what happens if you get 15? Come on, you're not going to get 15, right? And it's and I've had another leader earlier on in my career who used the same tactic. We used to all say you're crazy, right? I was an engineer back then. I was like, this is just ridiculous. You're just like, I could be home now, and you're making me do something that I really don't want to. To your point of how you keep the group motivated, and I remember hearing that and thinking, oh, he's that's what he's doing. I get it, and it's nothing. I think it mentally just you want to prepare for something that may not come, because when and if you get to that point, then what do you do, right? In 2018 when we started this journey, right, that was the first time we ran IPL on our platform, and we broke we set the world record back then, the first 10 million. That was very memorable for me because there was we really had no way to know that would be the number. Back then, the record used to be this Felix Baumgartner jumping from the stratosphere, 8 million YouTube. And we used to be like, wow, man, I wish we get close to it. That used to be the buzz in the engineering, the war room pit, as we used to call it, right? We had this like nerve center back then. Now everything is in the cloud, so there aren't people, but back in the day it used to be this like whole swath of people on the swarming on the floor. And when it actually happened, it was surreal because I had partners come in telling me that they're running out of capacity and compute.
I'm sure some of them were spending nights in your office as well.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. I've been very fortunate to have I really for people to co-build with us, and and it's been a journey. I think our best partners have actually worked closely with us, and we've made them a lot better. Right, and in places where we didn't have partners like that, we had to come up with our own stuff. So necessity and so on. But yeah, look, I think coming back, I think it's when it's just you prep and you hope for the best, and sometimes you just hold on, and like this, I remember when we did cross 10 mil, I was talking to, at that moment, while, people were going crazy, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I hope the event ends, because, we are rapidly reaching a bit of a cliff. And, I remember talking to somebody then and saying, this person asked me what's going to happen when this happens. And, I won't go into specifics. I'm deliberately being a little high level about it. And I said, I don't know. We've never taken the platform so far. This is completely like alien territory. And, fortunately, everything held up. And, again, this is sort of, again, focusing on the core drills, making sure teams were reacting, making sure that we had enough
But
pressure valves.
was that scenario X of whatever scale or the cliff, was that already done in drills?
Was it already?
Done in the drills?
It was.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we would not know what happened then, and
Yeah.
we had no control over things we couldn't control. But at least the group knew what they could do, right? And we lucked out and things held through. But yeah, there was a quote. I think it was Veer Das or something. I have it. It was very interesting when I read it. It said, I'm happiest at the bottom of the ladder. Right? And it's very profound, because, you can at once read it and feel a sense of being overwhelmed, or feel a sense of despair, right? All maybe potentially negative emotions. But if you pause and think about it, it's also this, kind of teeing into what I was talking about earlier, to say that there is so much more that you can achieve in terms of, what you leave behind, what your impact is. And yeah, look, I think, old school from that perspective, just show up and do the hard yards, right? And I think, any coach would tell you that you can't do something. I think, you cannot do something that is purely outcome led. I don't work that way. We always, right from the beginning, all my mentors sort of double down on the fact that, you just got to put in the time. It's kind of like surfing, perhaps, where, there is no guarantee of a wave.
Yeah.
Right? You are paddle and just be there. You're going to get a lot of duds before you catch the big one. But it's all about being there for the big one. So, I was, I don't know if you've read Shoe Dog.
Yeah, Phil Knight. Yeah,
Phil
all-time
Knight,
favorite.
right?
All-time favorite.
It's a great story, right? I mean, the one thing that stood out to me in that entire Phil Knight story was effectively that all he did every time was just show up. Like, every anecdote is a near-death experience. And, while again, it may be maybe a more dramatic way to think about it, literally for me, it was wonderful to read, because even that story was all about showing up. I think, it was never about saying, hey, let's build a multi-billion-dollar valuation organization. It stemmed from a core passion, and it just had an all-in strategy. A lot of my journey, if I look back, has been a lot like that, right? I think, and again, this is in retrospect, it's never in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? That you say you do a lot of these things. You and I have worked together, at least at one failed startup. So, you know that journey. But, right from, examples like that, it's always been about saying, can you, get together a group of people and really motivate them to chase something beyond salaries, beyond valuations. What is the mission that you're on? And I think I'm going to be a little more dramatic here and say that's really the human condition. I think, we would like, while fleeting as it may be, we'd like to sit down and leave something behind, perhaps maybe for just one more generation to remember you on. So, when I moved back to India and, we started to, I started to see that the tech scene emerging here, a big motivation for me, and again, coming from my time at OpenTable, was that, at OpenTable, I was part of a small team that, was responsible for taking the company public, right? It was in the engineering team, of course, very small, very special group of people. And, I was very lucky, luck, this is another Shoe Dog thing. In the end, he says, you can put in all the hard work, you need the luck. And I really believe that. I've been fortunate and lucky. I think I've paddled a lot.
But that's all your preparation, right? So luck, like preparation, when preparation day in day out, when that meets luck, that's when this one time or one day success happens that everyone thinks that it was a one day thing versus like a 10-year thing that it took you to get there.
I know. I think it's cool and pithy to say luck favors the prepared and so on, but it's the grind, man. I think it's tough on a lot of days, and you have to remind yourself, anchor yourself to what you're trying to do. It's super thankless, but when you ride that wave, I think that is like just validation.
You spoke about near-death experiences just recently, and I think as it is in intelligence work, the successful missions never make the news, right? And same in like a media property or a live sports streaming platform, when you're operating at such a massive scale where there are 50 million, 60 million people watching it at any given time. The successful missions never make the news, but like one glitch or one seconds delay or one buffering issue, and then just makes it all like it doesn't matter how. I think this again, like taking a Danny Meyer reference, setting the table. It when you go to a restaurant, everything can go right, but you see a speck on the spoon, and that just ruins your entire experience, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you obsess over the details? How do you ensure that your team members take that much pride in doing everything that they do on a daily basis and still show up with that level of commitment?
Yeah, I love that. I love the Danny Meyer reference. Danny Meyer was an early investor in OpenTable, and that's how I found out about him. And setting the table is such it's a bit of a guide. I think in terms of obsession, just relentless focus on quality and service, and that's such a powerful thing. He talks about the excellence reflex, which is that's the one thing that I'd say stuck with me after reading the book, was effectively saying that it doesn't matter, to your point about that speck on the spoon. It's probably a very small thing, but small things add up to big things. And look, in the media entertainment business, especially if you're streaming Indian cricket, you cannot fail. Right? There are no glitches, because a glitch basically means that our customers are unable to participate in that in that moment of either euphoria or sadness. And that's something that live sports gives you. Nothing other than live sports can evoke that kind of emotion. And at that time, a buffer or a crash is not acceptable. Right? I tell my team that as technologists, our goal is to strive to be the fabric and not the hero. Right? We are best not seen. So events like this make you seen. Though getting there and having something be completely drama free, you could have near-death experiences while you're pulling it all off. And I think the thing that gets us there is largely to be relentlessly focused yourself. I think one thing, if I look back on, I've been fortunate to have mentors that have doubled down on this, to push me to really make sure that you sweat the small stuff, but not too much. I think there is a line, through my career also, if I reflect back, there have been times when, you really, every small thing becomes a big thing, and that takes a big toll. So knowing what small stuff to sweat becomes critical. I think over the years, we as leaders build up on that muscle. And you've got to walk the talk. I would never ask anyone on my team to do something that I would not. And again, going back to the excellence reflex, if I spotted the dirt, I'd wipe it. And I think that
no job is too small, right?
No job is too small. I think that work ethic has been, again, I think instilled very early on with me, and I'm fortunate I have that. And people who work with me and have grown with me, I'm fortunate to have attracted people like that. So so it's wonderful, and again, I'm fortunate.
I know the significance behind Rocky. Like,
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
our audience why you have Rocky Balboa there.
So when when I took over Hotstar in 2017 and we started to really build our platform from scratch,
Yeah.
I'm big on memes. I like code names. So
Yeah.
I couldn't think of a better name than Rocky. I think just what Rocky signifies, and it's the underdog story up against impossible odds. Uh, Nobody expected us.
Those were the exact odds for you, right? When you ventured
Correct.
into live streaming sports.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I think nobody expected us. Our product at that point was built by a company that I will not name.
Yeah.
And that organization left no stone unturned in telling my boss that we would fail. When we finally broke the record, and you see the champagne bottle that Ajit, my CEO back then, he brought it, and it's very memorable. But it was great to sort of be able to do that, and as a group really show that we could build high scale tech without requiring system integrators. They're a very scrappy 30-40% team, and we killed ourselves doing it, but it remains the ride of a lifetime. Honestly, I think that first 10 million was sweet for a variety of reasons.
You worked in hospitality. You started. You were at OpenTable for a while, and then you moved to India and eventually built what is JioHotstar now, which was earlier Disney Plus Hotstar. How has your leadership evolved when you moved from hospitality to media to live sports streaming? And what are some of the lessons that you took from hospitality, other than the ones that we already discussed, that you still followed this to this date?
Leadership is, for me, has largely been about the same thing. It's always about the people, and then it is always about the domain, and then it is about the business. So for me, it's always been like that. I think ultimately, if you can't convince a group of people in the mission that you're on, it doesn't matter. Then people are showing up for a job. It's not the same. It's not the same joy that you get out of building and climbing these mountains, if you will. I was fortunate to have mentors at OpenTable that really drilled in the aspect of if I look back in my career, I've always had a lot of nervous energy to build. Right, I'm like, what's the next big thing, what's the next mountain to climb, what's that next mission, and being able to harness that energy and again really focus on the basics. One of my earliest mentors, Charlie McCullough, is no more. He was our CTO at OpenTable, and he came from a real-time operating system background, right? This anecdote will crack you up. So we were a small team then, maybe about like 5 odd people, and Charlie told us that, look, you guys aren't going to make your bonus this quarter if the utilization for the web farm goes up about 5%. So I think we didn't make our bonus for maybe 12 or 14 quarters straight. I remember at the time all of us razzing on Charlie, saying this is just a ploy to not pay us. But it's instructional. Of course, Charlie had his ways, but I think his relentless focus on the small stuff from a technical perspective, that has really stuck with me. For me, if I go back and if I think about it, and again, it's got nothing to do with hospitality, but so many examples of where, again, a lot of inspiration from my co-workers as well. What you look as seemingly very complex problems, to have that broken down, working with smart people. So again, I've been very fortunate to work with people that have really inspired me and taught me a lot. So from my OpenTable days, really, I take back a lot of this, make sure the building blocks are sound, right? So that, when you amplify, things orchestrate very well. That's been foundational technically. And the other big thing that I took away from OpenTable was how does success look like? Till I joined
that's more
OpenTable.
important than anything else.
Oh my God, yeah.
Defining the success criteria, setting the direction. I think, I'm part of my leadership philosophy has changed over the years as I was an engineering leader. Then I started my company, and I think when I was an engineering leader, when I was not running my own company, I used to always think that I would hire the best people and then let them do their job. But then you realize that all the best people need so much direction so that they don't go over engineering things that are not really required. Yeah. So like just being able to get them to focus on what the milestone looks like is one of the most important success criteria, I think, that you can set, right?
Yeah, no, very true. You know, in hindsight, when I joined OpenTable, this was like, I think I joined about 2004 or so. This was like the dot-com bust. Already we graduated school, and I graduated in 2000. It was already the bust. Then there was a 2004 bust. So we, as career-wise, I remember being in the Bay Area and just seeing the traffic half. Like the street 880 used to be used to be a chock-a-block getting to work, and it just one day you get out and you're like, wow, where did everybody go? So it was like that. It was very drastic, and these were tough times. And I remember joining OpenTable then, thinking, I have no idea how these people are making money. But I've always sort of followed my heart in terms of what I just felt like. This was a really smart group of people, and I was like, we'll figure it out. And I'm so glad I took a chance, and they took a chance on me as well. But the thing I'm most grateful to OpenTable for is just, after being in a string of failed startups, and just seeing how bad everything was, right? You start to lose hope. And I was very jaded, I remember, back when I joined OpenTable, because it just felt that you worked so hard, and you still find failure. So sometimes you just need that, something to reignite your passion towards being an entrepreneur or a startup, being in startups. And I got to OpenTable, and it was I remember it was Thomas Layton. He was a CEO then. He was just relentless. It was a small leadership team, and we used to talk to him and say, hey, we should do this, we should do that. Be like, no, we're only going to do this. And that relentless focus, saying no. People say no, and it's not really no, but I think obsessively focusing on something, and just knowing what your mission is very, very crisply. Right. I'd say prior to that, that's another thing that I've held on to. Prior to that, I used to work at a bunch of startups. People used to say, hey, what do you do? And I would launch into this 90-second monologue or what I did. And with OpenTable, it just became, what do you do? I do table reservations. And the simplicity of the mission, and it's hard to do, but that's another thing I've always anchored myself to say that, whether it's my teams or for my people, it's important for us to, work together and say, okay, what is that one thing that you're focused on? Forget about everything else, because, it'll come. It's not that it is unimportant, but being able to anchor yourself to the one thing. What is your mission statement? What is that team's mission statement? I found that to be incredibly powerful, and I think really helped. Even in our journey at Hotstar as well, at JioCinema, at JioHotstar now, that's also a very core leadership principle for me.
Simplifying things, as I think one of the most difficult things to do is to just explain in one line what you do, what you just mentioned, and just being able to communicate on a daily basis with your team as well in that level of simplicity, I think takes a lot of work.
It does.
Right. And a lot of obsession and a lot of focus.
Yes.
How do you coach your team to get to that level? That's something that I'm trying with my team as well. So I'm like very curious to how do you simplify things to a level where you're able to explain everything to me in one line?
I think that for me, the answer lies in org design. I'm a forever student of organizational design. It is probably one of the most destructive things you'll do, and at once it is the most foundational thing you'll do in the organization, right? Conway's law. So if for me, I always start by asking myself, what do each of these blocks do? It's like design, it's like architecture design for me, right? As much as you say that units of people are, they provide a certain function. I'm not saying it to diminish what people do versus machines and so on, but again, trying to use patterns that I'm very familiar with, from being a student of computer science to seeing it in other again, if you look around you, there are a lot of parallels that you can draw in terms of saying, what do people do? So it's important for me to think that, all right, if this is the outcome I'm working backwards from, and I find it instructional over the years to create these 3-year plans for myself. So I say, okay, here's my 3-year plan. This is where I need to get to. I say, okay, it's my personal work backwards plan. Then layering on what the organization wants from me. This is one thing I tell my team all the time, that if you are growing and you are delivering, the organizational growth is a side effect. And then working back, saying, okay, let me try to say, okay, what are the maybe 2-3 things I'll do this year, and then say, how does that break down quarter by quarter? Now again, it's super hard. People do OKRs and all sort of things. Sure. And again, coming back to saying, once I know the broad strokes of where I need to position the group, especially in my role set up for the last couple of years, then I really try to ask the question, saying, okay, can I break this up into a singular focus for every team? And it's not easy, but that's kind of the refactoring process that I end up going through, and making sure that it's meaty enough that starting from the leader, they also say the same things. I think.
Do you set those like singular focus criteria for them, or do you ask them to come up with it?
I start with it.
You start with it.
I start with it.
Okay.
Because I think of it that I start with the title of the story and the ending of the story, and I tell them, you come up with the rest of it. I'm a big fan of like Amazon's cultural values. I think the one thing that I take away from that sort of culture tenet is, you'll speak to people from Amazon, they talk that language, and that is fantastic, right? I think big Ben Horowitz fan, and his book on culture, and of course
Hard Things About
Hard Things is a Bible. I mean, I read it multiple times, and every time it speaks to me, and I take away different things. You identify with different parts of that story. So huge guidebook for me as a leader, for sure. But in when he talks about culture, it's so, one of the things I took away from that book was saying, you need, as a leader, there's this whole section in the book where he talks about, hey, I'm too busy to tell my team what are the most important things for me. And he reflects on it and says, that was a terrible decision. Right? And at some point he takes over and says, no, I'm going to do this. And that, for me personally, also has been very transformational. And that's why, I start with the title and the ending, because I want the team to hear from me. I want the leader who's going to drive that team to hear from me that this is what I want. And it's very valuable to set your expectations with your leaders, especially because they in turn will do that with their leadership and their team, especially when you're dealing with incredibly high performers, as you were saying, right? You need to provide some structure and get them excited about the mission, because then you speak the same language. They hear it from me, they hear it from their leader, they say it down to everybody else, and a lot of doing starts with saying first. An incredible...
that's a great... I just remembered the story. I think it was in Elon Musk's book on SpaceX. The author was just on the floor of the SpaceX factory, and he just ran into an engineer, and he asked him what he does. And the answer that he gave was not that I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm working in this component. He said the goal of the company is to get to Mars. In order to get to Mars, we have to first get to the moon. In order to get to the moon, this is the rocket ship that we're going to build. That rocket ship requires this kind of component on this particular timeline, and I'm responsible to ship that by that timeline.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the job description of that person, not what his skill set is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, going back to open table.
Yeah.
If you stopped anybody at open table in
Yeah.
the hallway and asked what, they'd say, we are enabling diners.
Yeah.
We were just obsessed with it. So it, that's so telling. And I see that strain in a lot of companies where people are passionate about the mission. Success is another thing. You can't. There's so many other things that are not in your control. What's in your control is how you anchor everybody, and that's the least you can do as a leader.
Akash, how do you see formats like VR, multi-angle, which you're already doing right now, and social co-watching becoming core to the future of sports media?
All of them are very exciting. I think, look, sports itself is a very communal. You watch with your friends and have Super Bowl parties and things like that, right? You watch games at your favorite sports bar. So it's baked into the fabric of our society, right? I think sports as such, going all the way back to maybe the Roman circus, and even earlier, it's something that brings people together. With technology, we've amplified the reach, but in some way we've also made it a solo experience, right? You're glued to your cell phone, or you're watching it at home, recording at your home, after you're done with your day's work and whatnot. If you think of just going back to starting with just co-watching, I think co-watching by itself is interesting. We've tried it. I don't know how much. I personally don't feel that it has that much of mileage in terms of the experience, because people coming together is interesting, right? I think you and me watching, let's say a football game on our commute back home, and having banter about the game. That's an experience, though I feel might have legs, and we've tried to experiment with that as well. But again, it's rituals, right, around sports. A lot of sports watching is rituals. I'm very excited about VR. I feel, from a perspective of just being there, one experience that I am very kicked about that we've unlocked for our customers is actually putting the VR camera on the Spider Cam. If you haven't seen that, it's at once.
For our audience, if you can just explain how that whole
Oh my God.
technology works.
Look, the Spider Cam is camera that's hosted on winches and effectively follows the action. Think of it as a bird, that's only focusing on watching the game. And if you could have that vantage point, that's what you're really talking about. Now, the Spider camera by itself is very interesting to watch, but now slapping on a VR camera onto it, that is a whole different experience. I get to hear different perspectives from customers who view it. They say it's disorienting, and they're not quite sure what to expect, but all of them come back with the same common thing, saying it's incredibly unique. And it's, you go to a stadium, you depending on what tickets you get, you're anchored to that spot.
Yeah.
Right. And you said, damn, I got good seats, or well, I can see the action. People, your true fans, I'm watching a baseball game, all your true fans have the radio commentary going on, because they're trying to keep up with the action more deeply while they're watching it on screen, right? I've been to baseball games where people are scoring, and it's amazing to watch. Again, rituals, right? So that's just the core fan experience. Now flip that using technology and saying that you're on the field. This is the best damn seat you could get. And I think that's what with VR production is. I am very excited about that. It's a bit of a chicken and egg from a technology's perspective, because bandwidth, devices, wearables, you're starting to see more immersive headsets and things come out, more affordable headsets. I feel like that could be a very interesting flip. I think what perhaps is happening with just the glasses format may be a very interesting unlock, right? The jury is out on whether all of us be wearing headsets and are in this futuristic world where we are in digital worlds and so on. But from just a massy adoption perspective, I think perhaps I'm betting on us being able to have an immersive sports experience, not watching on your phone, but simply being in the stadium during your commute. Now think of that. Now I think that's very exciting.
And wearing VR glasses and probably co-watching with the Spider Cam on, I think that's a whole
100%.
different experience.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Going back to monetization, how do you keep the monetization and fan engagement going after the season has ended? This is one of the problems that even all the major leagues face today.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you what's your strategies to keep the engagement and
I'd
monetization going?
say as a technologist, fortunately, I I play the role of disseminating this. But look, I mean, our content teams and our content strategists think a lot about this. It goes back to how we think about fandom and how we allow customers to continue to come back to the platform, right? And again, it's a way which evolving. Largely, again, whether we are sort of replaying content, right, saying, hey, these are the classics, or talk, again, allowing customers to immerse in the fandom, see, hear what makes their favorite players tick, and so on. I think part of it is content creation, but as technologists, we also try to focus on saying, is a library content that we could target. Let's imagine that Hardik's a big a big fan of a particular player. Are we able to create that sort of packaging that entices Hardik to come back and watch, let's say, his player's favorite dunk, or watch that his running back plow through and gain a bunch of yards and score a running touchdown. What does that look like? And Hardik's probably today going and proactively looking at an Instagram or a YouTube to maybe find those clips.
Yeah.
Uh, Provided someone's curated them. So as technologists, we try to think that, okay, well, could we be that? One interesting, I think, use case for GenAI is to sort of say that uh, it's classic, right? Think of every search you did that didn't have a result. Every 404 search, right, or a not found search is an opportunity to provide a generative output.
Yeah.
And if you anchor yourself to that, it's incredibly hard to solve.
Yeah.
And work backwards from that. Now that would be super cool, right? Imagine always, I was listening to a podcast where someone was calling this technology, just calling AI a genie, and I thought it was so appropriate because it's actually a genie. You don't
Yeah.
know, you get what you want, you get your wishes answered, but you don't know how they're going to be answered. And it's appropriate for weather technologies today, though it's a genie. So if you're smart, you can leverage it.
That's an excellent AI use case right there. I think.
Indeed.
Yeah. If someone hasn't solved it, they should. Yeah. Akash, as a fan, I don't really know what a modern day setup for live sports production looks like. Can you walk me through what happens from the stadium all the way to the screens that I'm consuming the match on? And how does it work today in 2025?
It takes a village, is what I'll tell you, right? So let's start from the stadium where all the action's happening, obviously, right? Depending on the sport and how you want to cover it, you can have anything between 30 to 100 cameras. It's just panning the action, right? Uh, Now, it's interesting, I think, and I've seen cricket production evolve in many ways. We do a lot of all our production remotely. So you could have all those camera feeds or some of those camera feeds effectively pipe onto a central location where a director is effectively calling the shots. I've seen variants where you've got a van sitting outside, and
Yeah.
they are corralling all the feeds, and only
That's so traditional though, right?
I think it's still super state of the art. I think it's quite a treat to watch the directors kind of cut pan cut pan. It's a it's no different from a musical orchestra, honestly. So now imagine you have a bunch of these cameras, and there are lots of cameras. Now you can take all the raw feeds or effectively only cut, let's say, 8 odd angles and send them over, right? So all these camera feeds are coming in, video is coming in. It's going to a central location where the director is able to look at all of it and create the final feed that the customer sees. And this is still not beamed out anywhere, right? It's not going to television. This is just in-house at that point. So now think of all the cameramen or camera people that you require, plus think of all the staff you require on ground on the stadium. Lots of wires, lots of different types of angles and cameras and equipment, sound. Then think of all that getting piped up and coming through connected high speed fiber, which is then redundant. And you got to account, we had an event recently where we had a double failure, and you just had no we had to rely on a tertiary failure backup, beamed it through satellite. Imagine that. So you say, well, that was the backup, the sat was the backup. But these are kind of things. Again, planning for failure becomes a big component here. Um, Now, once all those, we like to call this the world feed. So there is one point of view in English today for cricket specifically that comes out, and that is the produced world feed. Now, what we do here for our cricket audiences is to take that feed, and we produce in 12 languages today. So it goes into 12 language studios.
Wow.
Right? That's talent, crews, our special director, because it's not just the same video. Even the video gets localized. Right? So you do have access to raw camera feeds. I could choose to focus on Hardik versus Akash if that made sense for my geography. And then those feeds are then patched either onto television, right, which they get beamed up to the sat, or all these feeds then come to our digital landing point. So we'll take these produced files and or produced streams rather, and those then pump into our encoding machines, right? So encoders, which then prep everything to be streamed on the internet. You can't just take raw video and beam it out onto the internet. There are, HLS is the HTTP live streaming. HLS is the dominant format. The most, at least the most adaptable or adopted format, I would say. It gives you the widest coverage today for a country like India. There are content security things to think about. So there is some packaging that needs to happen. So you get the video, you package it for the internet, you layer it, you say, well, okay, depending on your speed of your internet, which layer you want to go on. If you've all of us are familiar with 280p, 380p, 720p.
So can you get a 4K with a
with 4K, yeah, and we've been streaming in 4K for a couple of years now in India, and we shoot in 4K. A lot of sometimes it's surprising. A lot of international leagues are still upscaling to 4K, and that's another thing that people may or may not know. Shooting in 4K with 4K cameras, that quality is something completely different from just upscaling 4K. Most people shoot in 1080p or 1080i, depending on what format they are married to, and then they upscale it to 4K. So now you're starting from a lower resolution input and then amplifying it to something that's a higher format. Versus, for example, a couple of years back, we started to shoot IPL in 4K. And that is, we call it Asli 4K because it is real. Asli means real in Indian, in Hindi. And then you're able to sort of have the highest fidelity input, and then everything below that just gets correspondingly better. So just, again, something for our sports fans. This is not the end of it, right? So now you only have you have these various renditions, as we call it, that are now ready to stream. Now, in a very basic world, you would just send the video out, but you need to make money. So you have a block in between that is effectively your entire ad operations team. But depending on the number of variations that you want to stream, uh, you can have anything from, I'm going to say tens to hundreds of people who are simply ad marking, right? And depending on the strategy that you make, right? Most traditional linear setups require armies of people to do this. And it is a human intensive operation. Because the number of variants, now go back to saying 12 languages, all having, while the break patterns are similar, if I stick with cricket, or whatever the on-field action is the same. The cue points are the same. But what you tee in there changes depending on what sort of localization you're making, right? That's your traditional way of doing ad marking and ad streaming. But over the years, we've done server-side targeted ad missions or ad targeting. So those markers are separate, and then the server decides what goes in there depending on whether Hardik is watching it or Akash is watching. That's something that we've pioneered over the years. Today a lot of other players offer it, but no one does it at the scale that we do it. And we've had to solve this for ourselves because no one else had this problem, and we need to find a way to make money quick. So that's a technology innovation that we've done over the years. So you've got the stream, you figured out how to ad market. Then at the point, now imagine that in the past I've used the example of straws, but everybody who has a device effectively has a straw back into your your main origin, as it were, right? Imagine you had just one file, simplistically. Just to watch that, you draw one line to every person watching it. That's 61 million straws, right? So again, you need a distribution layer in between. We use multiple CDNs, content distribution networks to make this happen. And with all our multiple CDNs, again, uh, depending on your each of your partners has different capabilities. They will have their own failures. They have their own product capabilities and tuning. So it's like it's such a multi-variable problem. It's mind-boggling. I think
It's very fascinating.
it is. And if you every time I talk about it, it's overwhelming because it takes so many people doing their job so fabulously well to get that. You watching it on your screen, you're like, oh, okay, I'm watching content, I'm
Yeah.
getting graphics, I'm able, I see ads whenever there's a break, or there's all these camera angles, I can switch languages. You just take it for granted as a customer, and the amount of effort it takes to get all of that right is insane. um, and again, it's not just, I always say this, that you know the digital team always gets a lot of credit because we are the face of
Yeah.
the product. We're like, oh my god, you guys, JioHotstar guys are amazing. But the unsung heroes really are our production crews, who are on the ground, who are our directors, who are putting everything together, right? All the operation staff that's making sure that the Q in Q outs are right. It's insane, and it's a symphony in when you watch it. It's beautiful. So it's something that you have to see to believe, right? I can only try to capture maybe the tip of the iceberg in terms of the sheer magnitude of
Yeah.
the effort that's involved in doing live production.
That's really fascinating, Akash. As a technologist, I think you've made me fall in love with the technology, and it's super fascinating how everything works behind the scenes, and there are so many moving parts. Uh, but even with the most sophisticated piece of technology, nothing really works well if you don't keep the fan at the center of it all, right? So, how did your overall product roadmap and everything evolve over time to ensure that you keep the fan at the center of it all? And what role did storytelling play in that overall process?
I love that you're bringing up storytelling. That it's credit to our storytellers and our creative talent. Look, over the years, as technologists, we've had the best outcomes when we collaborate very deeply with our creative talent and our creative leaders. And I'll say that we've been at in their service, right? And this goes back to the point of just a ethos that technology is a fabric, it's an enabler, right? We are not the hero of the show. So starting with the fan has been always a core tenet for the organization, uh, and we've been the face of it, so we get perhaps a lot of credit for it. But we've collaborated a lot in terms of what our storytellers want to do and how technology can enable it. And it's been a journey, right? Like if I go back all the way in time and say, we start by saying, hey, can we want to bring this content digitally to all our customers,
Yeah.
right? We only had television back in 2017 and so on. Of course, people had started to stream a bit, but we said, okay, could this truly be massy as a channel? And that's what our storytellers wanted to do. They wanted to say, can we now have a digital megaphone? That was the first thing we did. And we said, yeah, hell yeah, we have a lot of people who want to watch it digitally. We allow people to do this while they're on the move. And that was a huge enabler. India being, we have what, about 800 odd million smartphone devices in this country. Now that's your target demographic, right?
Yeah.
We're barely at what, and I'm not even counted connected households here, but so the only way to go is up. And how do you democratize that? So that was the first time we collaborated, and then over the years, as we've gone deeper, we said, okay, uh, how are we able to expand this footprint? What does it mean? And that basically worked backwards from saying, hey, India is a language of many, or is a country of many. We have many languages. How do we make sure that we represent at least the most dominant of our customers? And that's how we got to. We started with I think 6 languages, and we went to 9, and we went to 12, and we continue to expand that footprint. We over the years we've even built. I'm proud of this, that we're also trying to be inclusive and have access for our customers who require assistance in experiencing the platform. It was very interesting. We had a group of customers tell us that, hey, I love cricket, but I'm visually impaired. I can't watch it. And you think about television replacing radio. Radio is actually such a descriptive medium. So we actually had to bring in radio talent to be able to do that sort of feed, and I love that we were able to do that. Again, doing doing this digitally allows us the opportunity to do these things. Then coming to saying that, well, okay, it's not, if we are localizing for specific customer segments, then what does the next evolution look like? Yes, quality is one thing, right? Evolving and saying that, yes, there's a lot of banter while cricket is a game. Maybe baseball is a good parallel. There are lulls in baseball.
Yeah.
Right. You have the seventh inning stretch. It's not, something's happening, but it's just an experience to be there. I think cricket is a bit like that. But while you're at the ballpark, you're out getting a beer or snacks or whatever. But what do you do when you're watching it digitally? And most core fans have banter. So that's another thing we built. We've experimented in the past with doing just watch parties, having customers engage with other fans on the platform, just with like a chat capability, providing just ball by ball statistics. Effectively, is just saying that, hey, here's something that happened. We want to react to it. I think we find that customers react when most of us, when I ask you a question, you react to it. So we are trying to take that sort of a strategy to say, what does that product evolution look like? Then sort of coming to say that customers were keen on watching the angle from watching the game from many angles. That's how camera angles came about.
Yeah.
And that's gotten a lot of love in terms of how things have evolved. Uh, a big hit in the last couple of IPLs has been this hero can capability that one of our chief storytellers came up with. It's like, hey, in every match I want to watch a central character. Like imagine if you had a camera trained on LeBron James all the time. It's not hard to do, but how do you storytell, that also matters. Right. So that's where our creative storytellers have played a big role, and I feel happy that we've been able to keep up with how they'd like to tell, how they'd like to package it, and then comes on us to make sure that we provide the right discovery to our customers. It's not automatic and obvious that you put product capabilities there and immediately people take to it. So that's also a journey. I think for us, for our fans to now expect something as multicams are just the new normal, right? 2 years back, 3 years back, it was a new capability, and we would continue to think, well, is this being adopted? So at some level, it's for the organization also, and we've been lucky to have our storytellers just commit to the process and say that, yeah, if you build it, they will come. And we've been fortunate to see a lot of traction on the capabilities that we built.
It's very fascinating to see, especially because I think IPL is still, uh, like compared to all the other major sports in the world, like the league is still fairly new,
It is.
relatively speaking,
Yes.
and it's grown really fast. And while the valuation may not be as high as other major leagues in the US, but in terms of the fan engagement index, it's off the charts. Like no other sport I've seen that has that level of fan engagement and commitment.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about how all of this is a creative act. All of this requires investments and people and creative articulation. Now, are you able to sort of say all of these touch points, your temporal journey as a fan? This is all prior to the live event happening, right? Because when the live event happens, that's the hero. How can we actuate that with technology is another space that we are doodling on to say, uh, could our platform be that anchor where customers come back and say, well, I come here to watch the live event. Could I spend more time? Can this whet my appetite for a lot of these other avenues which I do engage in as a fan?
Let's shift gears a little bit. AI is the big thing. One of the most important feedback that I get with all the CEOs that I work with, or all the companies where I'm helping draw the entire AI roadmap for the next year or two, is resistance to change. Like most leadership doesn't really want to try and experiment with it. they do, like any new piece of technology, you also start dismissing it if it doesn't work right out of the box. But there are some really promising results that once you are beyond the initial friction point, you start getting to.
Yeah.
So how are you implementing that in your org right now? How are you bringing in that psychological safety to fail with that too?
Yeah, it's whenever I speak about AI on podcasts and things, I know, I say the moment I say something, I'm sure it won't age well. Just at the pace at which, look, if you'd asked me this question last year, if I look at, let's say, the last 18 months, and just the pace at which things have evolved, it's overwhelming. And about maybe 18-20 months back, when things had, ChatGPT, everything was starting to come out onto the scene, it felt very gimmicky. I've resisted push to make chatbots and things like that. I felt it's just gimmicky. It's not really solving a customer problem.
Exactly.
But humble pie, man. I mean, it just it's taken. How do you, again, as a technologist, I've seen so many waves, right? And then how do you break something up from saying that this is a foundational shift to this is the flavor of the quarter, the flavor of the last half of the year. And I think just the pace at which AI has sort of jumped up here, it's foundational.
Absolutely.
I think anyone who believes that they or is hesitant about it, it's, for me, it's as personally as a leader, I feel it's a quick way to fade into oblivion, because people who will adapt the technology and who will leverage it, they will take over your jobs, right? Even if you, and just from a leadership perspective, that is important to accept. In our organization, coming to failing and things like that, I believe, look, I think it's foundational enough, and that's a basic belief that I anchor myself to. So once I accept that, then I go about saying that every foundational jump always has its constraints as it evolves.
Right.
That's just it's a rite of passage for anything foundational that has happened. So how are we able to leverage even those constraints? Because there is, again, another foundational belief that those constraints will go away, right, in due course. Now, one thing I've always anchored on is to count my blessings, right? And so it's that sort of strategy. You can focus on what you don't have, or you can focus on what you have. And I'm trying to get my team to focus on saying, there is this foundational technology, it does these things. Oh yes, it generates a lot of code that you have to throw away. My most senior engineers sometimes say, well, I can write faster than this. And even if I look at, as an engineer, my life cycle, and that's something I've sort of been immersing myself in the last 10 odd months to say that how am I using AI in my day-to-day life, right? Because for me, as a leader, and Hardik, you may resonate, I think you end up spending a lot of time, focusing on so many things, whether it's people, strategy, delivery, and so on. So it's taken the place of a turbocharged chief of staff for me, right? So that's how I'm using AI as a leader. And I spend, I joke, we work together, so you may remember, but over the years, I think my Hotstar stint, I've stopped committing to the main line, but I spend a lot of time coding on the side as well, as much as I can, and the coding workflow just has kept evolving, and now I'm getting to a point where I feel like, yes, at least if you go back to just how we built products, I'm going to date myself and say, when we started, we used to have these big books. We used to say, well, damn, what's the API documentation? And, sift through it and then, type these really long, Windows API names, or, read man pages. And
5 lines to get an input on Java, right?
Yeah, right. It used to be like that. And then, somebody said, well, okay, here's IntelliSense. You're like, oh my God, what the hell is this, right? Your dot operator, and boom, you have all the methods show up. Then that had an efficiency. Like, okay, here's snippets. Then, we said, okay, well, here's people answering questions on the internet. So, if you were stuck on a problem, you could post it and, someone would solve it. And, it got to a point where like, yeah, every question I may have is answered. Every piece of code that I want is out there, right? But the best engineers have always been able to adapt, take that and understand what it does, because, when you put it into your code base, you got to support it. And I feel this is just a further mutation of that, right? In some way, it's mandatory pair programming.
Yeah.
So I look at it that way. I think it's fabulous if you are a pair programmer. I think this is very natural, right? Otherwise, it is just a really smart. Depends where you are on your career spectrum. For me, this is really someone who's. It's like hey, prep everything. I want to come in and I know how to read this code and I know what the right pressure points are and do it, right? The thing that scares me, and of course, state of the art keeps evolving. The thing that scares me is I feel a lot of the workflows might be about, I got AI to generate this, it works. Oh, you want to change? I'm going to throw everything away and then redo it again. Part of me feels like, damn, I don't know if that's a good way to do it. But I'm also challenging myself to say, well, why is that not a good way to do it? So I'm trying to keep myself open as a leader to say, how does work change? Not saying one is good or the other, but I think as a leader, for me, it's important to keep my mind open, also experience it firsthand so I can empathize with my builders. That's one whole category. The whole other, we just look at what's going on with video. Oh my God, like, VO3, right? Just in the last quarter even. It's incredible what's going on, right? But there I try to spend a lot of time with our creators to figure out, okay, what are their challenges? And, they're talking about lighting, camera angles, and, as a technologist, I can go in and say, hey, here's a prompt, here's a story, spit out a video and say, hey, look at this POC. But I know that, that's while we're making very rapid strides, it's again sort of trying to work with our storytellers to say, here are the constraints of this. It's amazing. And, fundamentally, again, anchoring to Hardik, technology is leverage. Technology allows you to scale, right? If we anchor ourselves to that fundamental point, using AI is mandatory. A, B, it's to help you to scale, which then, if you devolve it down, it comes down to saying, all right, what are people doing and which aspects of it can, be scaled with AI. So it's a bit more nuanced. I feel sometimes a lot of, and it's just an observation. I think so much changing so fast. A lot of pressure from, investors and leaders say, oh, we need to have an AI play. So there's a lot of this froth around putting something out there and then realizing that, damn, this thing won't scale. So it's also starting to build a lot of these, and, I'm sure this resonates with you because building that foundational layer to orchestrate and, create repeatability is super valuable, I think, with how the tech is evolving right now.
No, and I think going back to your earlier anecdote and mention about preparing, this is something that even though there are constraints, you prepare for them, you continue working until those constraints go away. Like yesterday, we were sitting in the office and one of my senior engineers, he just changed 3,000 lines of code in a few minutes. And that was the Cursor AI agent working on it. And he showed the entire decision-making criteria, like line by line, what they changed and everything. So they're monitoring all the changes. But you can't really beat that with, like, if you're not using it, if you're still against it, then you can't really, like, the productivity boost is off the charts.
It
like
is
3,000 lines of code. If you're changing by yourself, that's 2 weeks of work as an engineer.
Yeah, but the flip of it, Hardik, and I'm sure you have the same anxiety. It is 3,000 lines of code. Who is going to review that? Right. So you say, well, AI will write it.
Bring in the proper governance and monitoring and everything. So
So it's what I was saying earlier. I think you have to be willing to embrace that, and I think it depends on the use cases. Would you take a 3,000 line code change and drop it into production, for, let's say, something that is very highly critical and so on, like, man, I don't know, right? Like, I mean, I myself, I'll be like, yeah, shit, maybe I need to, I would take time to understand it, right? Depends what engineers coming with it.
Yeah.
Or you say, well, it's not mission critical, it doesn't matter, right? And so I think horses for courses in some way.
So Akash, AI adoption is everywhere, but it's sometimes slower than expected. Where do you think the industry is lagging behind in effectively adopting AI? And what's your advice for speeding things up, especially for companies in the media and sports domains?
Yeah, look, I think everyone's trying to come to grips with the pace at which this technology is evolving. So I don't think companies want to, or enterprises deliberately want to stay behind, but it's really trying to say, well, these are dollars to spend, and what am I getting for my dollars? And that's a big question. I forget. I think I was listening to a podcast by the Shopify CTO. I think or I forget now. Someone, I think it was him, but he was talking about how, if you were to hire someone today and say, I'd pay you X, but I'd pay you X prime, which is a little less than X, but whatever the delta is, you can, this allows you to use AI. The previous option of X doesn't allow you to use AI, right? And most people, and I think we were trying to contextualize the spend. I think I loved how the framework works, saying that, well, okay, rather than have adjective based conversation on, oh my god, this is a lot of dollars, say, okay, how much can you spend hypothetically? You say, well, let's assume that everybody spent I don't know, $2,000 annually per person in your organization on just experimenting with AI. Yeah, but you got to, like, this is something that's organizationally in your DNA, and you've got to show value for it, right? I'll pay you. You want $2,000 here, given, and we'll work together on how you are using it in your day job. Amplify that with the number of people you have on your team. That may not be a lot of money in the larger scheme of things. It's money, but not, you're probably spending that in a variety of other ways that are potentially wasteful. So I think it was a instructional framework to think of it, to say that, look, we've got to put money behind it. I think for people who have the means, if you aren't already spending money on this to try to make it part of your life, I think maybe one of the ways to think about it is if it's free, it's probably not that valuable. But doubling down and saying, damn, I pay for it, so what am I getting for it? I think that also sort of maybe is a motivator to really leverage that into your lives. And if you see some of the paid models are actually way more powerful than just the free ones, right? So imagine if you're getting value from the free ones, what you could do with the paid ones and the new iterations that are coming out. So I'd say, I think at this point, again, if you can afford it, I speak with all the grateful entitlement I have, but I'd say most engineers, most enterprises can afford it, and they should be spending. If you're not spending your own money on this, you're just going to fall behind.
One of the things I tell my leaders that report to me all the time is that if you can't show them in practice, they will never do it in the real life. So I think the tone gets set at the top, right? And every level of the leadership needs to adopt AI tools and start showing how they are using it to get the wins going internally.
100%. I mean, that, it's quoting Ben Horowitz, or, this is a common quote to say that, culture is what you do, it's not what you say. So this is a cultural thing, and that, starting with sort of saying that AI is a foundational shift. Foundational shifts happen only if you bake it into your culture. Otherwise, it's all lip service.
And it's very easy to say that we rolled out an AI plan where everyone has access to like a $2,000 plan annually. But it's tough to get it going until you integrate it in the culture itself.
Yeah, and you look at what enterprises have done with learning programs. Hey, everyone has access to Coursera or something like that. Whatever, you pick your MOOC. While it's great on paper, but the adoption and the penetration of that is not significant sometimes. Yes, there's always going to be motivated individuals who will use it, and it's great for that. But unless you make it part of the fabric, if you care about it, then you make it part of the incentive for your team, right? And it's a terrible thing to say that learning or self-learning is not foundational. But for enterprises, it's not, you say, yes, we expect that you learn on the job and you get the skills that you require to do your work. But is it going to make the difference between staying relevant or competitive and not? Perhaps not as not as acutely perhaps as what's going on with AI. So yeah, that is, I think this, you've got to adapt to it. I don't see a way out.
How do you future-proof your tech stack when your audience might double in a year or shift entirely?
Yeah, that's the classic conundrum, isn't it, of any architect, to say, how do you not over engineer, and how do you engineer just enough? How do you create adaptability in your platform? Right. And I think here's where, just the forward debt concept has always helped to think that, you're taking, where you may get to in the next couple of years. That's where I think how I like to think in just 3-year blocks sometimes helps to sort of, just maybe push the team into a direction where, we could end up. But also at the same time, making sure that you're doing just the most optimal things without spending a lot of time. Because, I could tell you, 6 years ago, saying, hey, we're going to do everything we need to do to run, 50 million concurrent, 60 million concurrent, knowing full well that it's just not, the laws of physics is just not possible 6 years back, right? But anchoring to that forward goal helped to do a lot of things right 6 years back that today are holding us in good stead. Just the way that we think and we put things together, and the way the blocks move, our operational rigor, etc., etc. I mean, I can go into like so many things. So I think doing a forward debt is a valuable way to, take a future bet. May or may not come true, but at least you meander your way to it in some way.
Cool. I know there are constraints in AI today, but there's certain limitations of what you can and cannot do. But if you were starting a new live sports media streaming company from scratch today with the power of AI, how would you build it? What would you do differently?
Oh, I think we're not there yet. I think if you just think of live streaming, which is actually such a hugely human enterprise, even still, AI is not there yet. I would still do it the way that we've done it. I think a lot of it's convenient, I think, to say that, well, everything is that much faster with AI, but there are still, at least in, we spoke about just the overall production workflow, and there's a lot to it. I think probably the only one thing that I would say could be influenced by, building something in 2025 is there's a lot more things available off the shelf. Gluing together things is potentially, maybe just creating presentation layers is not a big deal. Those could go really quickly, right? Who's to even say we have, experience layers anymore? Everything might just be, hey, just turn the map, turn this, I want to watch this game, just do it. Everything is agentic. So that's another, thing I think about, that perhaps we are moving to this more audio driven world where, everything is on demand. There isn't a, hey, open this app, click this, do that, log in, etc. But, of course, ways to go there, but things are sort of trickling in that direction.
How do you decide what not to build when you are operating at the edge of tech demand and scale?
I think I was going to say something very cliched and say it's high focus, but it's valuable to know what you're targeting. If I was to anchor myself to something more concrete, we know, I know that I make a upside bet and say that this is the kind of beating that I'm going to get. This is what my business requires, and there's a lot of effectively scenario creation and elimination that we do to say, okay, these are again all the things that can kill you if you were to operate your business like this, or if this was the kind of traffic that you were going to see, and that we use as a decision framework to limit the things we do. A lot of it is I'd say that's kind of foundational almost. So while we know that, okay, it's likely that maybe in 2 years time I may have 100 million concurrent customers. It's not unthinkable. We are very close to
especially at the pace which we are going.
At the pace that we are growing, and the pace at which we have digital adoption. But am I going to get there in 1 year? Maybe. Who knows? I mean, I have after doing this for so many years, the one thing I know is that I always get surprised with the intensity at which we grow, and it's amazing. But yes, we do know that let's say that it's again one of those things that 6 years ago we prepped to 450 million concurrent. So we say yes, now we are sort of saying, well, okay, it's going to be 120 million concurrent. What does that look like? And people sort of sit in the room and say, well, here we go again. But it's a way for us to sort of playbook our way into the future as much as we can. Look, I think again, to take a sports team metaphor, you can do all the drills, you can run all the plays, but it's the person in the sports person in the arena, right? So sometimes you've got to make magic while it's happening, right? It's the choices you make, right? It's the shots you miss, it's the shots you take. So I think going back to Formula One, it's in the margins. I think when it's happening, I think you use your muscle memory, and then with some sprinkling of luck, you're able to make it through.
Let's take a different example. So you've been building for India for a very long time, and India is such a diverse country. You have 22 official languages. I think that's official languages, but there are over 120 spoken languages.
Yeah.
And then you have over 19,000 dialects. So when you're building for India, there's so much cultural diversity and complexity. How do you see AI giving you an edge in that when you're trying to reach to all of these people who all don't speak the same language?
Again, going back to technology helps you to scale, gives you leverage, right? If you just look at just the JioHotstar journey through the last 8 years, Hotstar, JioCinema. Even if you look at what Star Sports has done in just the evolution of how live sports is beamed, right. Or entertainment even is beamed in India. There's so much focus on localization.
Yeah.
Right? Anyone who has run any international operation will tell you that not acknowledging or not localizing is not an option. You go back to Uber, Netflix, pick your organization that has scaled, right? You need to adapt. McDonald's, right? You eat at a McD's in India, you eat at a McD's in the United States, right? You're not going to find the same menu.
Yeah.
You still get your Big Mac, but
you don't find the same logo either.
Same. Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is localization is mandatory if you want to succeed in a market, and localization is expensive. I think it's production itself costs a lot of money. You may have the best intentions, but at the end of the day, you're a for-profit business. So how are you able to justify that? I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to build awareness, and then I'm going to have to justify it the next year, saying, well, 20,000 people watched it. Like, but you know what? All these millions of people are watching the other stream, right? I'll tell you a fascinating story. When we started Hotstar, one of the key things we did was to recognize, I'm going back 6-7 years, was to say that we want to know what language you consume in. And it was such a subtle thing. Look, we are all English, in India we speak English very very comfortably. All your engineers are, educated, they've gone to the best institutes and so on. So it's such a mindset change to say that our default language should not be English, right? So you look at your data and say, well, everyone's, the majority of the people watching digital are speaking English. And internally the group questioned, saying that is counterintuitive. In a country like India, why, sure, a lot of people speak English, but why is that the most dominant language? And I think it started from there, and we said, well, this doesn't seem intuitive at all. We said, okay, the default's now Hindi. And and of course, the next year the data showed that Hindi was more dominant. So sometimes it's like also as product builders, this is something we try to anchor in all the time, saying that we are not, while every customer is super important, our mission is to reach every last Indian customer. And building for that requires, again, empathy.
Yeah.
To say that, somebody sitting in Indore, what is she experiencing as a customer, right? It's interesting because, perhaps with just the advent of YouTube and how the whole consumption economy has changed, in the last, 15 years or so, people understand the iconography and they can find their way around. English as a base language is not such a barrier anymore.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me, right? We've done a lot of experiments to sort of figure that out. But the language of consumption really makes a big difference. So for us to be able to provide
when you talk about consumption, are you also talking about connection to the product?
100%,
Yeah.
right? So localizing, one of the earliest things that Star Sports did, Star Sports broadcast produces all the content that we beam digitally, and our production colleagues decided that they wanted to produce in 9 languages, 12 languages. Now, again, this is a sort of it's a acknowledgement by the leadership that we are a digital product. Right? If you think purely from a linear TV perspective, you say, hey, I don't have enough channels. How do I provide people an option to do this? And classically, if you go back even to North America, you'd say, well, okay, here's my Comcast remote and I have these ways to change languages and things like that. So over the years, publishers have built those sort of capabilities, but it's clunky. Right? However, on a digital platform, you aren't constrained by anything. Technology allowing you to leverage and grow scale. And that's how we went from 9 languages to 12 languages. But guess what? I think even that is very expensive to produce, but it's a commitment of the organization to keep investing in it, and this is classical to say, yes, I'm investing in something, I'm not seeing traction, but to have this belief saying, yes, it will come. And it's a balance, maybe a little bit of a field of dreams to say, you build it, it'll come. Sometimes they don't show up at all, but there is ultimately, this is sort of coming back from saying, of course, Hindi should be more dominant than English, and then starting to say, well, why only Hindi? Should be all our major languages in India. And now again with AI and over the last couple of years, you see whether it's subtitling or it's
multilingual commentary.
Exactly, it's just commentary in local languages. Indic languages are hard to crack. So that continues to be a challenge. And
I can vouch for that. We've done a lot of work on that. So
I know we've done some work together on it, right? And you also at once want to be respectful. See, as a technologist, you say, oh, I can use this technology. Everything looks like a nail to me. You want to be respectful because dialects are important. Languages and communication is important. Context matters. While you may say, here's 200 variants because I can throw it on digitally. Figuring out the right customer experience, making sure that the content meets a certain bar is also super important, because you don't want to put something out that's substandard and then it just becomes a turn off, because you say, well, I was fine with you doing it in maybe just the 9 languages. Thank you for making us feel seen, but this is really bad. Like, I mean, why would you do something like that?
What are some ways to alleviate some of that, some of those concerns or some of those friction points? Like if you is not having it better than having a subpar experience with a disclaimer that this is powered by AI?
It's a good question. In 2025, especially for, I think, as being the leading broadcaster in India and holding a very large megaphone, I would much rather not do something than do something subpar. And look, the subpar is a gray spectrum, no? It's not binary to say that this is really bad or this is really good. You get to a point where you've got to again, and we spend a lot of time trying to expose native speakers of the language to what we're producing, and to think that, and basically to do a lot of customer research to say that, does it resonate with them? Is it insulting or does it work? Does it improve the experience, right? Because there is also this sometimes desire that technologists have to say, just because we can, we'll do it. But frugality in product experience is valuable, right? And at once I'll say frugality doesn't necessarily mean doing less, but it's about saying what's the right pressure point to improve the customer experience, whether they're watching it, whether they're navigating it. I spoke about the whole language detection piece, which was such a huge unlock, because it's like saying, well, I like to watch in Marathi, or I like to watch in Gujarati. Oh wow, oh, you guys are beaming it in Gujarati, great. You pick it once, you don't have to do it again. Next time you fire it up, or you fire any content up,
Yeah.
and if we do have it available in Gujarati, it'll boot up in Gujarati.
What if you go beyond India, right? Like especially when I'm talking to the major leagues in the US and they are actively investing and expanding internationally, but you don't have those commentators or experts who know the game that well to be able to do the kind of commentary that you're used to when you're listening to it in English. And
Again,
cricket is becoming more and more popular now, even in the US
absolutely.
right now. So
Look, I think I'll go back to what I said earlier about really, test driving it with real customers.
yeah,
We do power a lot of international markets using our platform, and a big part of the acceptance or rolling the product out in the market was actually spending a lot of time test driving what we had done with local customers to see that, okay, is it really landing? Are we doing the right things? Right? And you can spend a lot of money. I think it comes down to, of course, internationally, if you're talking about, let's say, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, they obviously, every league wants more adoption.
yeah.
Right? And they want a larger international customer base. That's expansion.
Yeah.
And it starts from even sometimes explaining the sport to them.
Yeah.
Right? We could
and especially if it's a new sport, then it's foreign to you, plus the language is not yours.
100%.
And then it becomes a bigger friction for you to even connect with the game.
Yeah, right. And let's say I think soccer is probably one sport that just translates and is global from a stature perspective. People get it, right? I think people watch, so it's one thing to have an awareness of the game, and the second to, I think, have the commentary. Because I'll flip it for you and say that expert commentators in a growing market may actually be a turn off, because they're making references that more regular customer will react to.
Absolutely.
Right? If you tell me you say, hey, oh, that's an offside, you're like, I don't know what an offside is. Or you say, well, that's a lateral pass that this person made, like, I don't know what's lateral. So I think there is also this again, going back to the localization aspect, to say, who are you speaking to? Right? One of the things that I'm really proud of that our organization does is not just to take the video and schlep on language over there. It's also trying to understand and really produce it to say, what are the sensibilities of that market. Would you, for example, imagine a use case where you said, I'm watching an NBA game, and there is this Texas A&M player that's hugely powerful in Texas, or hugely popular in Texas, who's making all these amazing jump shots. Now, should my broadcast that goes to the state of Texas be more tuned to play up this player's contribution? You're now tapping into a lot of college, affinity. You've got all these segments of customers who've grown up or are used to seeing this player, play for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And then, they'll be like, yeah, we like watching him or her play. So that sort of localization, technology can enable. So for me, I feel like those are more interesting localizations. Let's say, if you just pick North America from a talking point, and we try to do similar things from a aesthetic perspective in India.
Akash, you've spent a lot of time in the US, and over the past few years, you've been in India. What do you think American leagues and platforms can learn from how you've engaged millions of Indian fans?
Sports is so foundational in North America.
Yeah,
it's a way of life. I think I was in North America through a lot of my younger years, and it was fascinating to see. I think while we are passionate about our sport here in India, Americans are take it to a different level. It's just again, it's a very cultural fabric over there, right from college sports to professional leagues and so on. The broadcasting over there has doubled down a lot on just the core experience. Again, it's been very television oriented. I feel like the digital jump hasn't particularly happened. Right, and it's a function of technology penetration also, right? So it's if you actually step back and look at it, it's a higher ARPU market. People have access, to higher to better devices, right? iPhones and things. In general, the demographic is such that you go home, you watch television, everything, the programming, everything is organized to fit your life, right? Your American life. In India, it's people are on the move all the time, commute, infrastructure. We made these leaps, right? We went from just like dial telephones to cell phones, and so in I'm sure in other parts of the world you'll probably see the same. So we've had these technology jumps which have been amazing for India, and that's opened up swaths of new customers, which has then opened up access to consumption. And we've had to be more digital first in that sense, right? While our television experience has always grown and been amazing, and a lot of technology transfer, and I'm sure thoughts that went back and forth, let's say 20 years back. But because we've seen such a spurt in digital consumption, and we've had to build these digital first experiences, our television storytelling has had to adapt much faster to that. So I feel like we are ahead of the curve from that perspective in terms of our storytelling digitally. There could be a few cues that our North American friends could take from that, and it depends. Again, it doesn't automatically mean that all camera angles. I mean, you watch NFL on Fox, camera angles are not a new thing, right? Or stats on-screen stats are not a new thing, right? I think the MLB app. I go back to my days on just watching baseball on the web, and it's fantastic. The stats, the commentary, all literally watching the base runners and seeing where they were. So I've experienced sports like that. However, it's still a small cohort, right? It almost feels like, again, from a distance, sports in North America has become more about a lot more about the fantasy aspects of it, the betting aspects of it. It's a whole level of monetization, and I think that's fascinating. The core fandom, though, I think in terms of how they are expressing it, it feels like it's still limited to the experience and then done, right? Though again, you've always had a culture of sports radio, podcasts. It was very common to turn on sports radio and listen to it on your commute to work. And these were the earliest manifestations of podcasts, from my perspective, dating myself. But I think trying for the sports league itself, right? I think an interesting way to think about it is that, hey, it's your content. How much, why should anybody other than you make money from your IP? It's a little bit like that, right? And if you sort of anchor yourself to that, saying that, of course, people can have opinions and surround around it. I think there's a lot more that leagues themselves can do to amplify the value of their properties by creating these experiential levers.
Are there any wish list items that you feel that baseball or football could have that you currently have in cricket that you've enabled personally?
I haven't really given thought to it, to be honest. I think, if you think of an interesting, one of the aspects, and I don't know how valuable it is, but I think being on the field or having a point of view to the batter or the pitcher might be an interesting way to experience the sport, right? And think of it like, we've experimented with batter cams and bowler cams over here. That's it's a way to watch. I think we're still evolving how the storytelling works. But imagine if I don't know if they're already doing this, but if you had an umpire cam, right? You'd think from a baseball perspective, the home plate umpire has the best vantage point, right, in terms of what's happening, because they're also reacting and watching the game. They're officiating. Now, what does that look like, right? And again, those are, like, I think, very obvious ones that come to mind, I think, in terms of parallels to how we've done it. A lot of the fan engagement stuff is also, I think, again, it happens a lot off deck in terms of fantasy leagues and things that are already operational. But those are, again, all islands of engagement. How does that flow back into what your teams are doing or what's happening on screen and so on? So I think there may be some opportunities to tie into enriching that experience also in a big way. to see what that looks like.
I think one of the things we were earlier talking about was, in addition to stats, if AI can help power some of the storylines, like generative AI powered storylines, I think that could be.
Sure, absolutely. I think, and I think this goes back to if you think of if you take the narrative, or if you take a thought saying that yes, the commentary crew drives your narrative or your experience of the game, and are you able to sort of have a perhaps a more skewed uh, telling of the event also, right? Because you're sort of passively consuming it while you're doing other things, maybe
probably driving.
you're driving, or you're just, I mean, it's a weekend and you've got the game on, and you're probably distracted, you're doing other things. So how do you draw the customer back into the game? And those could be opportunities with generative AI. Though again, I think it's again this propensity to look at everything as a nail with Gen AI. But yeah, some green shoots there.
Cool. Akash, I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
Ready?
Yeah.
Favorite lesson from Star Wars that you use daily?
Do or do not. There is no try. That's my Yoda line.
Your favorite leader, what's one lesson you've learned from him or her and that influences how you lead today?
Ben Horowitz, culture is best done firsthand.
Brilliant. What keeps you awake the night before a major match?
Nothing really. I'm tired and I get my night's rest.
One big bet you took in your career that paid off?
Betting on open table, and seeing that right through, it was very transformational for me.
But that involved like you taking some bets that didn't work out on your way to open table that worked out.
Yeah, it was one bet, right?
Yeah. Okay. Top 3 AI tools you use every day?
ChatGPT dominantly. ChatGPT dominantly. Claude, Cursor, just to build product.
Yeah.
I think spend most of my time actually just using this tool.
And how much vibe coding are you doing right now?
Whiteboarding.
Vibe coding.
Vibe coding.
Yeah, how much vibe coding are you doing right now?
I'd like to say I spend not that much, but probably about 2 to 3% of my time every week.
That's good. If you had to define your job in one sentence, how would you describe it?
Enabler.
Akash, looking ahead, what's one challenge or opportunity you are most excited about solving next?
My challenge continues to be the same, Hardik, that I started this journey with. How do I create an inclusive platform for consumption for India, right? And that's an ongoing journey. It's about figuring out ways to use technology to improve access, which we've been fortunate, and that's the journey we've been on. I see the next, the big mountain to climb is really, how do we build relevancy with our customers with all the amazing content that we do have using technology. So that's what I mull over a lot.
Akash, this show is all about legacy. With all you've done and all you'll do, what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
It'd be wonderful to be known as someone who broadened the reach of entertainment for my country people using technology.
Cool. Good chat. It was fun.